Well, here we are, 2014 Kia Cadenza, 3.3 liter. What a freaking nightmare car, man. What a nightmare car. It came in here before we bought the business 16 months ago. When it came in here, they talked to the previous ownership. The previous ownership said, look, you got metal and stuff in the oil. These engines are known for these types of problems with bearing failure and block failure and stuff like that. What we'd really like to do is we'd actually like to send this over to the machine shop and let them fix all the things that are wrong with it that would have been wrong with it from the factory. New bearings, new pistons, new piston rings, resurface the heads and all that other stuff, and go through and fix everything that needs to be done. So the guy agreed. It's like an $8,000 job. This gets sent off to the machine shop. The machine shop has it for months and months and months and months. The business sells to us. The customer already put a $5,000 or no, $3,000 deposit down on this. The business sold to us, my buddy, my best friend, my best man at my wedding. And he then a couple months later recruited me to come in and help run the business. I invested some money and stuff in the business, and now here we are with this situation that we get the engine back, we install it in the vehicle, and immediately something, you can tell something's wrong with like within the first 30 miles of driving. All of a sudden it starts misfiring and stuff. Get the vehicle back in the shop, and the way they had set up the keyway and the crank gear, it sheared off. I guess there's an update to that they didn't know about. So took the engine back out of the car, took it back to the machine shop. They fixed it. They updated it with the new Woodruff key and timing gear and whatever Kia update is for that. Then they give us the engine back. The customer makes it about 500 miles after putting the engine back in it, and it's misfiring on 3 of the cylinders. I think it's 1, 2, and 6. If I got my firing order correct on this, I think that's bank 1 on this. I'm assuming. I think it is. But anyway, it's this cylinder, and then the next cylinder, and this cylinder over here. My guy was having a hard time figuring out what it is. I said, well, let's get a cylinder leak down test going. We leaked down that cylinder. The intake valve wasn't closing. The next one, the intake valve wasn't closing. And this one up here, intake valve wasn't closing. And at that point, I realized, well, it doesn't look like there's a bent valve or anything. I got to get this tore apart. So I got it tore apart, got the heads back off of it, took the heads to a machine shop, a different machine shop. They went through, they cleaned everything up, and they said, hey, look, the gummy, sticky stuff that's all over those valves was stopping those valves from sealing all the way. That's why you were getting like 80 to 90% compression loss. Something's going on with the intake manifold you guys put back on there, or you've got a major PCV issue because it's sucking oil back into the engine, and it's just covering these valves in oil and stuff, and it can't keep, the valves aren't, they're not staying clean enough. And I believe this is this port? No, it's direct injection. So it's direct injection. So the valves aren't staying clean. They're gumming up with all that oil and stuff. The tops of the pistons are all full of soot and ash. So then I get the heads done, got all the valves pulled out, all the seals redone. $400 later, I get my heads back, all cleaned up, bring them back to the shop. I get ready to start installing them on the block. And when I go to start installing them on the block, I noticed that, no, let me back up a second. When I pulled the heads off, I noticed that cylinder 3, cylinder 2, cylinder 5, the threads were spinning when I was, and they were supposed to be pre-torqued by the machine shop. So I knew I was going to have to address that. So I ordered a kit for it to come in so I can time cert those. But then I called the machine shop back up and I was like, hey, what's up with these threads, man? When I went to go pull these heads off, I took the heads to another shop to have them cleaned up. But you guys are the ones that built this engine last, and those threads were just spinning inside there. Those head bolts weren't even tight. And they were like, oh man, the 3.3 and the 3.5, that from that year, that era, 2010, 2011 up, 2015, 16, the threads pull right out of the block. it's a defect from Kia. They don't give you very good strength around the threads, and they'll just pull right out of there. So he said, well, you got the heads off, come back to me and bring me the block, and I'll just go through the whole block and I'll do the whole thing. I'll time cert every single one of the head bolt passages, and I'll bolt everything back down for you, torque everything. So he did. A couple weeks go by, and I get the heads and stuff put back on, get the engine built, get the engine put in. And the machine shop, when they built the engine, they put new VCT solenoids in. Well, when we were going back together, after we went back together and started it, this VCT solenoid for the intake down here, yeah, right here, yeah, it was throwing a code. The solenoid was no good. So we had to go get a new solenoid and put it in there. Take the intake manifold and stuff back off yesterday. Put a new solenoid and stuff in there. Put everything back together, and the P0016 code went away. Everything running fine. New plugs, everything's good. But I noticed on cold start in this, because it went from 60, or no, it went from 70, 75 degrees yesterday to 34 degrees, 32 degrees overnight. When I cold started this morning, it ran a little bit rough for the first like 15 seconds. And 15, 20 seconds ran real rough. And then it cleared up and it runs like it's absolutely brand new. So I may have to go back through and look at the factory ignition coils that were on here to see if maybe I have a couple weak ones. Or what else could it cause, you know, just on the initial startup running rough like that. It's running good now. Doesn't seem to be any leaks or anything like that. And so far it seems like it's running very well. The machine shop thinks that what happened with the guy that did the heads the second time, he says, what I think you did is you reused your old intake manifold, and whatever catastrophic failure that previous engine had and the amount of blow-by, there was too much oil in that intake manifold, and the engine was slowly sucking that oil out over that 500 miles the customer was driving it, and it was ashing up the cylinders because it couldn't burn the excessive amount of oil that it was pulling in. So eventually it started gumming up the valves and creating higher compression in the cylinders. Then the vehicle started to run rough, yada, yada, yada. You know the story. So here we are. Going to try to figure out that rough startup for that first 10-15 seconds before it clears up. It is low on fuel right now, so maybe that could be part of it. Fuel light's on. I don't know how much fuel's in it, so I got to go get some gas put in it. But that's the update on the Kia. It's running very well. Just trying to get to the bottom of whatever else may be going on. Yeah, no pressure or anything coming out of it. It seems to be running very well. Yeah, that's a quick update in the story on the Kia Cadenza. What ended up happening is we probably lost about $3,000 on that job. The $3,000 that was initially put down for the engine to be rebuilt by the machine shop, the previous ownership took with them, and then we assumed the responsibility of the business, and that job was like an $80 some $100 job. We actually only received about 5,000 of it because the owner of the vehicle had already previously paid a portion of it, and they didn't transfer that money with the company. So we lost $3,000 on the initial setup and probably another $1,500 on cleaning and gaskets and sealing, and maybe another $1,000 on maybe another $1,500 on. So I bet you overall we probably lost close to $6,000 on this job, trying to make this customer happy because of a transition from one ownership to the next and not knowing what's going on, and maybe not even following some steps appropriately. But that's the cost of running a business and trying to figure out what the right way to do things is and trying to make it happy. It sucks because this vehicle has been here for the better portion of a year solid, 10 months straight almost now, and then between the customer taking it for the 500 miles, which he didn't drive it very much, he had it for a couple months while doing that. It's sad a customer has to go through something like this, but I think we got it lined out, I hope anyway. Look at that here. Sad that we run into occurrences like this, and there's no way to explain it. There's nobody that can explain how sucky it feels having to do this to a customer when you're trying to work on their vehicle in between having vendors put stuff together so you can get the customer their vehicle back, and those other vendors have schedules as well, and they can't just drop what they're doing to accommodate you. So especially with a giant production machine shop that we went to, it's not just a small one. I eventually went to a small one which got the work done right away. When I went to a big one, it took months to get stuff back. So that's the update on the terrible Kia Cadenza. Customer's been without this thing for probably over a year, and it sucks. Between this ownership and the previous ownership, and we lost about $6,000 on the job. I guess that's the cost of doing business. And you live and you learn, and you make sure you don't accept Kia jobs ever again. And I got another one. Right here. I got another Kia Cadenza 3.5 liter out of a Kia Sedona van. We had to put another engine in the man's van, and then that one, the threads pulled out of the cylinder head and coolant started leaking into the pistons and oil and everything else. And now we got to pull those heads off, send the block out, have it all time certed and prepped and put back together, so this guy has a backup engine, because this new used engine that's in his vehicle had 100,000 miles on it. It's only a matter of time before it goes. So he wants a fresh one built with all the updated stuff. So that's next. Luckily, he's a family friend kind of thing, and it's not a regular customer, because I won't work on any of these anymore. I'll send them somewhere else, or I'll let the customers know up front. You get one shot. We're gonna have it built. Unfortunately, this is the scenario. Do you want to go through with it or not? So y'all take care. Be blessed. Have a great day.